Hello and welcome back to Funeral Industry Insights, the podcast where we help you make sense of life's most important moments, including the end of life. I'm your host, Michelle Dwyer, and today we're unpacking something that, many people wonder about but feel very few actually feel comfortable asking. And that's, what's the difference between a coffin and a casket? And why do they cost so much? So first up, let's talk terminology. Okay, so in Australia, the words coffin and casket, they're often used interchangeably, right? But they actually refer to two very different designs. So a coffin is what most Australians are familiar with. It's shaped to follow the contours of the human body. So that means it's wider up around the shoulders and then tapers down at the head and down to the feet. So it typically has a simple flat lid, although that can be sort of raised as well, and it's often made from MDF, a veneer or a solid wood. So a casket, on the other hand, is rectangular in shape and generally features a split lid. So the top half can be opened up for viewings. So caskets are more common in the United States, but they are growing in popularity here in Australia as well, especially for those that are wanting a more polished formal farewell, and also sort of above ground burials. They're sort of choosing that a lot too. So they're often made from timber veneer over MDF, or you can get them solid metal or even eco-friendly materials as well. So now let's get into the dollars and cents. So prices do vary widely depending on material, design, and in all honesty, where you buy. Okay, so budget coffins generally start at around the 300 to 800 mark. They're often made from cardboard or a particle board and commonly used for your direct cremations or eco-friendly funerals. So sometimes not where you're going to have a funeral service as such. So, I know for us at Dwyer Family Funerals, our price for a direct cremation coffin is $200. So we're sitting lower than the average in Australia. Traditional coffins, they're generally used on funeral services. They're often made of MDF with a wood finish. These typically range from, say, $1,500 to around about $4,000. For us, our starting price is $1,400. So again, we sort of sit typically just a little bit below what the average in Australia is. Your premium coffins, which are crafted from your solid timbers like mahogany or oak, they can cost anywhere between $5,000 and $15,000 or more, especially with custom features. So our pricing starts around that $2,200. So as you can see, there's a huge difference between some funeral homes. Your family-owned funeral homes, they will generally be a lot more cost-effective when it comes to choosing a coffin in particular. But you've got to remember, it's a big cost in the funeral service itself. Wicker coffins are also part of a growing trend toward that sort of natural biodegradable funerals. They're made from woven natural materials, so like willow, bamboo, seagrass, and even banana leaf. So they're eco-friendly, fully biodegradable, which makes them ideal for your natural burials or a green cemetery. But most wicker coffins are woven by hand too, okay? So it gives them a unique quality. And they typically cost between about $1,200 and around about $3,000, depending on the material and design that you do choose as well. Now, let's compare that to caskets, okay? So that was coffins that we were just talking about. So now let's talk about caskets because, typically they are a bit pricier. Okay, so a basic casket will generally start at around $2,500. Now remember, this is your rectangular shape. Okay, so generally around that $2,500 that they'll start. Ours start at $2,200. So again, that little bit lower. Okay, so your mid to high end models that have got like plush interiors, split lids, polished finishes, metal, all that sort of side of things, they can exceed over $10,000. Okay, so again, it comes down to your personal choice. Okay, so but the average cost of a coffin or casket in Australia generally tends to sit around that mid-2000s, so around the 2.4 mark. And most people do choose something that is in that middle price bracket. However, I can only talk for the families who choose to use us. But on about 95% of our funerals, our coffin / casket price that we generally tend to sell is really around that sort of 1,500 to 1,700 mark, not around the mid-twos. So it really does come down to who you choose as your funeral provider, as your funeral director, I should say, because we generally source them all from the same places. So you can just see how the markup can be and can vary on different companies. Okay. As I said before, your family owned and your independent funeral homes, they're going to probably be a little bit sort of more cost effective on your coffin prices because they don't have a lot of the massive overheads that the big companies have. Okay. So again, why the price difference? So it does mainly come down to your materials. So a cardboard or an MDF is going to be cheaper than solid wood. Okay. The design. So your caskets have got more features. They're cushion lined, hinge lids, ornate handles. So they're going to be a little bit more expensive. And as I said before, your supplier markup. So you can buy directly from a manufacturer, or there's some online platforms now that you can where you can save a little bit of money versus going through a funeral director. However, a lot of the suppliers will only sell to funeral homes directly as well. Okay, so and another thing that does makes the difference about price is customization. So personalised engravings like colours or designs, they will drive your price up. So these are becoming a lot more popular where families can choose a specific design, such as a horse theme or a floral theme or, your favourite football team, or even just adding personal photos to the outside of the coffin. So they're bespoke. So you're getting them custom made. So of course that's going to drive your price up. But again, your funeral director has got contacts there's a number of places in Australia where we can get those sourced. So it doesn't necessarily have to be because it's customised through the roof on price. They can still be quite reasonable. So whether you choose a coffin or a casket, the most important thing is that it's got to suit the wishes of your loved one, okay, and your budget. So that's a big thing. So don't be afraid to ask questions or even shop around. Feel free to ask your funeral director, where do you source your coffins? So majority of suppliers, will use locally made coffins. However, some of the coffins and caskets are imported. Okay, so particularly your metal ones, they're generally sourced from the US. But why not ask your funeral director, hey, where do you get your coffins or caskets from? Are they Australian made? If that's particularly important to you, ask that. Ask them to show you the Australian made options and things like that. But, I know for us, we offer a diverse range of coffins and caskets, but ours are a combination of both. So we've got locally made. We've also got imported ones too. So it caters to various preferences and budgets. Okay. But ask the questions and remember, plan ahead if you can. Okay. Because that can bring peace of mind and potentially save you thousands of dollars if you choose to pay for a coffin at today's price and it's not needed for 15, 20 years, then that's going to save you and your family a hell of a lot more money than, what you think. So look, thanks for tuning in again to Funeral Industry Insights. I hope you've got a little bit out of that, and can now understand the difference between the two. And if you did find today's episode helpful, please share it with someone that you love and don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from. And until next time, I'm Michelle Dwyer, helping you navigate life's final chapters with clarity and compassion. Thank you.